Hi there. Welcome to the CIDCI online salon series. I'm Margie O'Driscoll, and on behalf of the CIDCI Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome you here today in a joint presentation with LCI, the Lean Construction Institute. CIDCI is a not-for-profit organization that relies on your financial support to provide these programs. Thank you to all of our sponsors who make this possible. Today is our last webinar of 2021. As the year tumbles to an end, we are thinking about how much we all have to be grateful for, most especially the creation and distribution of COVID vaccines that continue to be rolled out across the world. We're so grateful to the doctors, nurses, and essential workers who have given us all so much over the last year. And we're grateful to all of you, our community of innovators, for your imagination and creativity over the last year. Never before have we been so challenged as an industry. And never before have so many risen to the challenge. Congratulations to all of us for making it through another very complicated year. As we plan for 2022, CIDCI hopes to return to in-person events, hopefully in a number of US cities. Stay tuned as we begin to imagine a new way of connecting that will, of course, include a virtual element. If you aren't on our mailing list, please sign up at cidci.org. And here's an invitation. Please consider participating in CIDCI as a listener to these free webinars or as a sponsor. If your company needs to stay abreast of the latest innovation, and if you want to inspire your colleagues, we're your go-to destination. I'd like to now introduce you to CIDCI board member and LCI chair, Rebecca Snelling. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hey, thanks so much, Margie, for the warm welcome. A little bit about the Lean Construction Institute. It is the United States version of it. It's a nonprofit, member-based organization, and our mission is to lead the building industry in transforming its practices and culture. We envision a healthy and thriving building industry, delivering outstanding project outcomes for everyone, every time. And our organization, LCI, we offer e-learning programs, regular webinars, online trainings. We have 30 communities of practice across the country. There are a few national in-person events that happen every year. The next one is our Lean and Design Forum, which is coming up in May. It'll be on May 3rd and 4th, and that'll be held in Phoenix, Arizona. So for more information on any of that, to sign up for our mailing list, please visit us at www.leanconstruction.org. Now, I'm really excited to introduce our speaker for today, Niklas Modig. Niklas and his wife, Danielle, live in one of the 30,000 islands in the Stockholm archipelago, along with their dog, Lennox. However, right now, they're actually relocated into the city as they're planning on welcoming their new baby girl, River, into the world in early January. Niklas has quite the extensive background. I'm assuming most of you have heard of him. He's a researcher, he's an economist, he is a writer. He wrote this terrific book, This is Lean, that so many people have used on their journeys. He's a speaker. Some might not know, he has also been a dance and fitness instructor. He is also currently the founder and the CEO at operationalexcellence.com. It has been a real pleasure over the last couple of months to be able to spend time with Niklas, learning with him and helping as he created today's presentation for this group. So today what he's going to share with all of us is a process and a formula that he's uncovered that actually enables you to be more intentional about engaging people on their projects or in their jobs, which, as we all know, having folks engaged in their work is a key in keeping your turnover lower. Niklas, I'll turn it over to you.
Wow, thanks for that introduction, Rebecca. It's a great honor to be invited to you superstars, and I've been looking at all the participants, and you tend to get a little bit nervous when you see who is actually listening. So I'm really grateful and thankful for inviting me here. It's very dark Stockholm outside. I just took a walk with my dog and it's very wet. It was -13 the other day, but today is like +1 and it's very gray and wet. So it's quite cozy to be inside. So the topic of today is, I mean, when we started to talk about this is approximately 3 months ago, had a very interesting discussions with you guys, because usually I talk about lean and agile and operational excellence, but now we wanted to talk about how to build people. I mean, it's an old expression. I think it was Toyota who said, we don't produce cars, we produce people. And I think producing people might sound a little bit weird, but what I think, I mean, irrespective of what organization you are working within, it's all about the people and creating a great culture and involving people and making them engaged and making them feeling ownership of the company. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about that. Like, since I was a researcher, I've always, I mean, as a researcher, you develop knowledge, but I think the most interesting thing is not to develop knowledge. It's actually how do we spread knowledge and how do we actually make sure that people can absorb and do something about the knowledge. So it all started out when, actually, as you said, maybe you don't see me, it's 15 kilos ago and not so much gray hair, but I was a fitness instructor teaching dance and step up. And then I saw some real inefficiencies when it came to advanced dance classes, because if I tried to move in a way and they didn't follow, I got instant feedback for that. So it was a very good scene to analyze, since if I communicated a dance choreography and I saw that they didn't follow, then I knew instantly they can't understand. I don't get that feedback from a lecture, right now. The only person I see is Rebecca, but I don't know if she's following me or not. She's smiling, so hopefully, but that's only an hypothesis. But if I see dancing people doing exactly as I want them to do, then I know they understand. So I experimented within that industry for many years, and I developed a concept called value-added aerobics, where I actually applied lean in dance teaching processes. And that was the starting point, and that actually opened up the doors to start researching about this, because I told this to my professor and he was like, wow, this is interesting. Maybe you should write a doctoral thesis about that. And I said, yeah, I'm doing lean service, but that was so long time ago and no one did lean service. But then we started to actually go into what is lean and how do we actually apply it to non-manufacturing processes. And then, to make a long story short, then I got the opportunity to be inside of Toyota. And once I got home from Toyota, Japan, we wanted to write up a book about lean, because then lean exploded and everyone wanted to know, oh, what is, it was really, really hot, much hotter than it is now. Now everyone is like, oh yeah, I've heard about lean, blah, blah, blah. But then it was like the new thing. This could be like 12, 13 years ago. So I remember I got a phone call from a guy working at the Swedish government, and he said, Niklas, I know that you're researching about this. We want to know what lean is. There's so many books, but we don't understand what it's all about. I've read 3 books, but I still don't understand it. And no one really still understands, but everyone wants to implement it. What shall we do? And then I talked with my professor and said, okay, let's write the easy to understand book. And then we started to think about how can we write a book which really tap in to people's brain. And then we started to analyze even old Astrid Lindgren stories, like how did she open up a story or a fairy tale, or then I analyzed Malcolm Gladwell's books. Like I felt that they were so capturing. What does he do? Like one book is called Tipping Point. How does he make me understand what the tipping point is? It was a lot about storytelling and metaphors. And we analyzed a lot of books, and then we said, hey, we saw a pattern. And that was the starting point when we actually started to see a pattern, how to communicate in certain sequences. Like we start with a story, and then we continue with this and this and that. And then I've applied that and refined that both in writing and then speaking and now within e-learning. So I can see a clear pattern, and that's what I would like to tell you about, that pattern, because I think it has helped me a lot. I think there's many strategies to make people understand, or I remember I wrote a post on this on LinkedIn the other day, how to make people understand, and no one instantly, you don't make people understand. It's an internal process. So I would phrase myself a little bit better. By using this method, from my perspective, we can increase the probability that that internal process works in a lean way or in a smooth way, so to speak. So I'm going to actually take a small case for you where I'm going to describe a phenomenon that I've been working a lot with. And it takes maybe 7-8 minutes, and I'm going to engage you. I'm going to show you a video, and then I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'm going to ask you to engage in Menti. And then after that, we say stop, and then we look, what did Niklas do during these 7-8 minutes? And then we're going to do it one more time and see the pattern, and then we're going to talk about that pattern, how I actually can do it. So if that's okay with you, Rebecca, that I start sharing and do the first round of the showing the facilitation loop.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen now then. While listening to me, you can open up a browser and just go into menti.com, because I will ask you to go here later. You don't need to write in the code, but you can open up a browser, and because I would like to pick your brains in a few minutes. So let's start now. I'm going to talk about something about that I call the facilitation loop. And I'm going to give you the first example. And this first example is from when we launched operationalexcellence.com 6 months ago. And we wanted to talk about one of the phenomenon that we think is very much describing what operational excellence is. And then we made a little bit of a demonstration in the studio, and we recorded that. So I'm going to show you a video from our launching seminars, just 2-3 minutes. And you will see me, I'm passive, but the leader of this demonstration is Henrik Knieberg. It's my co-founder, and he is leading this little show. And if you don't know Henrik, he's one of the leading authorities within Agile in the world, brain behind Spotify and Lego and Mojang in Minecraft. So he is within the software industry, but he is extremely well in terms of developing great metaphors. So we did this together. So check out this video and then we'll continue. So if we're going to start, now we start the facilitation loop by looking at this video.
As Beata mentioned, I'm a fan of silly metaphors. So the metaphor of today is Lego bricks. And before we show the video, I'm going to explain a little bit about what you're going to see. This brick represents a customer request, and it's going to be sent to a team of 4 people. And those 4 people are going to execute that request by passing it between each other. So when all the people on the team have held this brick in both hands, then it goes to the customer. So go ahead and roll the video, and let's take a look at this. So there they are, working hard, and there's the customer. So first shipment done, right? So it's just a simulation, but there are connections to reality if you choose to look for it. So there's another one, they're working, getting stuff done. Each person has like a specialty, and they're applying their own specialty to the job, working together, getting these things done. However, what happens if we were to pause right now? Pause. Right, now imagine that the manager comes walking by. Here comes the manager walking by, takes a look, sees this instant in time, goes off to a meeting. All right, continue the movie. All right, people are working, and here comes the next request, and they're still working. And then suddenly pause again. Okay, manager comes back from the meeting, takes a look, and what do you suppose the manager is thinking right now as he looks at this? What are you thinking? Yeah, not many people working, right? It's only 1 out of 4, right? Every time manager looks inside the room, it's just 1 out of 4 people working. The others are just standing around. Seems like a bit of a waste, right? What are you saying? Oh, he wants me to fix this. He wants me to make sure that we are getting bang for the buck. These are expensive resources. We pay them a lot of money, and we need to make sure they're working hard, right? Cool. So in the next video, in a moment, you'll see another version where I make sure that everybody is fully utilized and working really hard. So go for it. Let's see the next video. There they go. Watch them. Working hard. all being super busy. Okay, pause. All right. Manager comes in, wants to see how this whole thing worked out. And lo and behold, look, they're all working super hard. Everybody's being really busy. Wow, we're getting bang for the buck, right? This is great. We hired these people, we paid them, and they're working super hard. It's perfect. Except if you take a look at the right, you see the customer there. Like nothing really has been delivered.
So I think this is a great demonstration about how we view efficiency. And when I talk about efficiency, I always ask people, where do you put up the camera where you want the action? And in this movie, we put up the film camera on the shoulders of the people working there. So if this is a schedule, we could put up the film camera on their shoulder, and we want to make sure that they are busy. They really, really are adding value from the start of the day to the end of the day. So we want to have action on the video camera all the time. So what type of efficiency is this? Well, if we look about it, well, if we want to define what type of efficiency this is, we have available capacity, how long time the capacity of these people are available. And what we can contrast that with is value adding time. Here we have something called resource efficiency. So resource efficiency is about capacity utilization, and we want to maximize that. That's the most common way of viewing efficiency. So now I would like to ask you a question. If we now understand that making people busy, I want you to reflect upon this question. What are the disadvantages in construction projects when resource efficiency are too high, meaning that people are too busy, which in turn generates a lot of island thinking? So that's the question. What are the problems in construction projects when we create island thinking, or when we really maximize resource efficiency? And I want you now to go into your browser. You can also use your mobile phone and just go into this web page and press in this code 7338-9006. And then I want you to, you only have one answer each, but what is the main problem when we create island thinking? You still you still see the code up there if you need it again, but write one answer. What are the disadvantages that we are generating when we are too busy and when we are creating islands within our construction projects? So rework, we get uncoordinated. Safety issues arise, overburden people. Yeah, we don't improve. Rework, quality issues, silo thinking, hard work to adapt. I mean, now we start to roll here. Hard to adapt to changing demands because we're busy. We have brick installed before the weather barrier installed. Yes. So self-delusion, we break the flow. Exactly. If we want to develop good flow and everyone is busy, then we will definitely not be able to see it. Wow, hands off, yes. Poor flow along the value stream, increase danger, decrease quality, create confusion and distrust. I mean, this is what I would call a fairly unattractive buffet of consequences that no one really wants to eat from. So what I think is interesting here is that now we have generated 44 different or even more soon, but we have a lot of ideas about why we shouldn't focus on resource efficiency and why we shouldn't make everyone super busy. So let's say stop here now. Now we have generated this list, and I go back here to this PowerPoint presentation. And I would like to think about if from the point where I started the presentation on showing me movie until now, if we were to video, I mean, we are making a video recording of this Zoom meeting, but if we were to cut this into different scenes, what did I actually do during this period? It took us 8 minutes. So what happened between this in this in this mini movie, eight minute long mini movie, but we have different scenes where I did different things. If you can see in a pattern, you can post it in the chat and see what did I do first. 1, 2, 3, 4. I did actually 5 different things. Since this is just a webinar, if this was a workshop, then we could have a lot of interaction, and you will be getting the question. I mean, a possibility to ask questions later. Rebecca, do you have anything to add to this? What do you see?
So can I share what I saw? And now I know the answer because we went through some of this the other day, but what I saw was I experienced something. You put me in a situation where I got to experience watching them go through that and kind of demonstrated what things look like. And then if you step back a little bit, you asked me a question and you asked the whole audience a question and you got input from everybody. And now if we were live, like you just said, we'd be having a robust conversation, I'm assuming, with the 75 people that have just experienced this. I'm sure I missed some things, but that's part of what I saw. Yeah, and that's almost exactly what I did. I had these 5 different small scenes. The first one was, as you said, experience. So we looked at the movie, we're listening to Henrik, and this is an experience since we can actually be there. If we are doing a workshop, we do this live with the Lego, then we can really experience, but we can actually see it. That's why we have good YouTube movies. Then the next one is demonstration. And that means that we go into this and say, where do we put up the film camera? And we could easily, by using this example, we could easily say, hey, this manager, he wanted you to create action movies on each film camera on the people in this little room. So I used a metaphor in order to pinpoint what shall you focus on in this experience. And then I defined it, and where I say, hey, we have resource efficiency here. So we started in experience, then we demonstrated what is important in that experience, and then we defined it given the demonstration, from putting up the film camera on the resource to say, this is resource efficiency, and this is how you do it. Then I came to the question. And we went over here, and then you generated, now this is empty, but it looked like this. So we created this together. And I didn't just ask a question, it was a very aligned creativity that I was able to create by, first of all, showing an example that I know contain a phenomena that I want to teach. Then I demonstrate that specific phenomena, then I define it, and then I use that definition to go back to a new context, and that's your context, where you have experience and where you have knowledge. So experience, demonstrate, define, question, and then create, or we involve people. So I'm going to do this one more time, but now you know the pattern, and I'm going to continue this movie, and we're going to continue listening to Henrik. So again, look at the facilitation loop and how we go through these 5 different scenes. So try to recognize them now. First one, experience.
Let's roll it and see how it looks like. So pull is happening right here, right? Pull a task. When you have capacity, pull the next one, etc. So now we have roughly the same flow time as before, like the end-to-end time to get a brick through the system. We have a little better resource utilization, but most importantly, it's a self-adjusting system. We don't need to worry about keeping everybody busy. They'll keep themselves just busy enough. And notice now they're all passing green bricks. So what happened was they got customer feedback because they're so fast, and through that feedback, they learned that green is worth more. So they're passing green. And now they adapted again. They learned that now the customer needs yellow. So we not only get better flow, we also get better adaptability to customer needs.
So this is just a short move, but it demonstrates when we have a different view on efficiency. And here, we don't put up the film camera on each person. We put up the film camera on what we're actually producing. And here we have a need. I want a certain Lego brick. Then we can request that. And then we make sure that everyone is focusing on the flow. So here, I mean, on a hospital, resource efficiency is to put up the film camera on the doctor. In flow efficiency, which we define here, that is when we put up the film camera on the patient. But here we have the Lego brick. So if we want to define what this is all about, then we have the throughput time. at which we contrast to value adding time. In resource efficiency, then we had available time from the resource perspective. Here we have throughput time. How long time does it take for the individual to actually get their need fulfilled? And this is what we call flow efficiency. So flow efficiency, that's another side of the coin, and a completely different type of efficiency. I mean, in the construction industry, we can put up the film camera in the hotel room and make sure that we have flow, that there's continuously value adding time in the hotel room. That's why we need tact, and that's why we need to have very, very smooth flow through the buildings. So here we put up film camera maybe in the hotel room, or in the zone, or in the floor, or on the actual building. That's what we can call the flow unit within construction projects. But here, let's go back to the question. If we are able to generate really, really high level of flow efficiency in a construction project, it could be within production, but it could also be within design. It can also be within procurement. Then we put up the film camera on the contract. In design, it's on the blueprints. In production, well, we have already talked about that. So there are many different flows, but what are the advantages? If we go back here now, what are the real advantages if we can create high level of flow efficiency within a construction project? So let's get some examples here as well. Why should we focus on flow? What are your best argument? Less rework, design and feel, better throughput, work on what matters, more throughput with better quality, better predictability. Less conflict, good moral. Well, effectiveness, meaning we do the right thing instead of just thinking what is right within my area of responsibility. Better communication, less waiting, better productivity, reduce wasted time. I think this is enough. I think we could discuss this. Think if we were in a room now and everyone could put up post-its and everyone had to present, why should we focus on flow? Imagine that this is a beginning of a construction project and we say, well, one of our main principles is to focus on flow. And then we do this exercise and everyone comes up with their own argument. This is why we should focus on flow. We don't give them any slides. We don't give them any instructions at all. They come up with a blueprint. This is how we should work. And this is the reasons why. So we have just very easily made them to create their own Bible, that they're not only, I mean, you could read this in any lean book. Why should you implement lean, or why should you implement flow? But we haven't given them any book. We have asked them, what do you think, where they have gotten the ownership and they have also gotten the engagement to talk about it. And this is what I think is interesting. It's not about, I mean, I could give you these slides in 2 seconds, but now I spent 20 minutes, but I don't want to just give you the right answer, because in change, and if we want to build people, it's the ownership and engagement and involvement. That's actually where the real success comes from. So if I go back here to the same pattern, you could see it was a new movie. Then, as I said, we put up the film camera on the other type of, on the actual Lego or on the flow unit. Then we defined this is flow efficiency. Then I asked a new question, and then I let you, I involved you in terms of Mentimeter. So the upper part here, that's the negative example that I use. And then the lower part here is a positive, because my intention is that I wanted to make you I mean, I know that you understand this, but the purpose here was to establish a way for me to talk about resource efficiency, a flow efficiency, in a non-dramatic way where people feel that they can come up with the conclusions. So if I'm just going to summarize what we actually done here, remember these 5 different steps: experience, demonstrate, define, questions, and then create. So what I do here is I work on different levels of abstractions. Fruit, this is just a metaphor in itself, but it's very efficient to make people understand. Fruit is a general definition. Then we have apples, and then we have green apples. Green apples are much more specific definition when it comes to fruit. So what I basically did here, that I started with an experiment on a red apple level, meaning we talked about Lego, and that's very far from a construction project. That means that everyone's like, okay, we can look at Lego. They don't get into this mood. This is not invented here. So we started down here. I gave you first the bad Lego example and the good Lego example. Then we try to make the experience from the Lego more general so we can apply it in an other context, but because the Lego context is an other context than construction. Then we demonstrated by using two metaphors, put up the film camera on the worker or on the flow unit. And then we can define it. And now we are on the general level. We have defined a concept that's applicable within all type of contexts. It doesn't matter if it's construction, it could be healthcare, or it could be even production of mobile phones. I mean, it doesn't matter. But now the beautiful part comes. If we can define a general definition, then we can go down and ask a question, what does this mean for you? Then I have traveled you from down here in the Lego context. I brought you up to a general definition, and then I can go down, what is your experience? And then it explodes of ideas, 44 or 45 different ideas. Why shall we not focus on, or what are the consequences of high level resource efficiency? And what are the positive upsides of flow efficiency? So getting even more. So we had two different experiences. This is the first step. Start in a context where people don't have an attachment to. That's why it's so good with simulation games, or going into an industry where you're not emotionally attached. So I use Lego, it's very good. We have another example with ping pong balls. Then we use the demonstration, put the film camera here or there. Then we can define. And then we have the question that taps into people's experience, and then we ask them to brainstorm. If we had more time, we could present. People could say, what is your experience, Dean? Or what is your experience, Dan? Or what is your experience, Corey? I could ask you if we had more time, and then everyone gets aha and awareness from each other. But the thing that we have created is owned by everyone, and people feel that, yes, this is something we believe in. And I think this is the interesting behind this loop, that we should always start, if we really want to engage people, we should start with something where they actually experience something. It could be anything, a story, it could be a demonstration, it could be visit another project, it could be a Lego game, whatever. But this is the part where we use the brain in a certain way, where we can generate new experience. And once we have done that, then it's very easy to go in with a metaphor or say, hey, this is the phenomena that I think is interesting in this experience. And if you can use a metaphor there, then it's even more faster. And then we define, this is the phenomena that I want you to think about. And then we ask the question, and then we actually we can go down then in different contexts. We could be general and say we can use this in construction projects, but we can do exactly this when we start the design process. Say, how can we create flow in the design process, or in the production process, or in the procurement process? What is flow? And we haven't given them more education than 20 minutes, but we have created the situation where we can create an alignment within the creativity, so people come up with what I want them to come up with. I could, of course, come up with a slide, say, this is good and this is bad, but this is the main problems. Why shall we take this long way? The most common mistake with manager is that they are usually engineers, and they feel, I have the right answer. Why should I involve everyone? I know how to do it. So they skip all these things and they say, hey, this is how to do it. But then we have only produced the right answer, which might be right, but you have skipped and eliminated experience where you get inspired. You have experienced the logical way where people start to think, okay, this is interesting. I understand the concept, resource efficiency and flow efficiency, and that's only a theory. No one tells me you should implement lean. It's just a concept where you can actually talk about it everywhere. And then we start to say, what does this mean for you? And here, when they get the question, that's where they get the engagement, the ownership, and the possibility to say, I want to do this. Because it is when we trigger a creative process, that is when the ownership and engagement is produced. So This is basically the loop that we're trying to use in the beginning of projects or in the middle of projects in different contexts by just involving people. But we use this facilitation loop. And you brought up my book. Read the first chapter when we talk about the breast cancer. We use this loop exactly this loop. And that's why I have gotten the understanding that people understand, because we just start with a story and then we use the story to demonstrate. Here, we use the story to demonstrate and then we define it. This book is about flow. And then, of course, we can't do the workshop when it's a book, but we use this part in every chapter. So if you want to learn more about it, you can, well, many speakers are using this. So that was the part, Rebecca, that I wanted to demonstrate what I call the facilitation loop. And we use it in the book. I use it when I give a speech. We have even used it now. What did I define? The facilitation loop. How did I do in order to make you understand the facilitation loop? Well, I made you experience it 2 times. Then I demonstrated it with exactly this picture here. And now I've defined it. If we had a workshop, then I could say, well, where could you use the facilitation loop? And then you could come up and then so it's actually 3 different loops that we have been using here. So it's so simple when it comes to involving people, but it's the aligned. We shouldn't just go here to ask a question, because then we get this hand grenade creativity. Everyone comes up with different things. By starting out with this right part here, that's when we can create this aligned creativity where people come up with the answer that I want them to come up with.
So Niklas, let me ask you a question, playing a little bit of devil's advocate here. If I'm a project executive of the project team, whether it's design or construction, and I'm learning about lean and you say, go through this loop, but I already know the answer, or you know the answer, how do you convince me that it's not a waste of people's time and energy going through all that loop when we can just give them that information?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. My wife said, Niklas, you look a little bit chubby. Maybe you should go out to take a run. Oh, I get so motivated. That's the same type of setting. Use this whiteboard and you do this and blah, blah, blah. Oh, they get probably, I mean, change is not about the right answer. It's about making people seeing the problem, understanding the solution, developing the solution, trying to implement the solution. It's about using people's brains, not to use them as their machines. So I think it's quite straightforward. And if the product manager doesn't understand it, then just apply the facilitation loop on his or her, on him or her. That's why stories, cases, simulations, that's usually what convinces them, make them experience really bad flow or whatever phenomena you want to describe, and then make them experience, not told. We have to use the same thinking on them. I shouldn't say you should use the facilitation loop. Then I'm not using the facilitation loop. I have to make them experience it, then help them. Well, did you like it or not? Yeah, okay, this is what we did. Maybe we should start involving everyone. If we're going to work together for 4 years, maybe we could have 1 or 2 days where we work and trigger people's brain in the right direction before just saying, this is the plan, this is your contract, do your thing. So I don't think that motivation comes from the right answer. It has never been, at least for me.
No, I would agree with that. So how do you then take this and scale it to a large project?
Well, if we think about it, maybe took me 20 minutes to demonstrate this. What we have done now is that we have developed training programs where we use this loop in different ways. So when, for instance, a general contractor wins a project, even when we have the kickoff for the project, then we 2 weeks before say, hey, it's great that we won the project and we are really excited to work together. But in order to make sure that we can hit the ground running, we want everyone to look into these types. We have an e-learning program. You're going to get invited. We usually have a mini kickoff 2 weeks before, and then everyone get access to an e-learning program where we do between The last e-learning program is 12 of these facilitation loop: a story, demonstrate, define, and then a question. How do you want to do it in this project? And then we do it again. New story, define, and then the facilitation loop. How do you want to do this? So 6 of the modules, that's about lean and the structure part. How do we want to work? And 6 of the modules, it's about collaboration. How do we want to work together? So we can do that it's like an onboarding process, but we can also be very concrete. For instance, how do we plan interior work? Then we can have the same type of thinking, how we actually demonstrate how to make a plan, or we demonstrate how to control an area. So it's the same thing, but we use a lot of stories and cases where we demonstrate, this is how we do it, how would you do it? And then people have to come up, instead of just giving them, this is the plan, this is what we do, what we should do. So it's different type of programs. We have general programs to get the right mindset, and then we have phase specific programs and also role specific programs. We see we have a comment here from Hans Thomas Holms, who is one of the project leaders from one of the largest construction projects in Norway, where we have used it just to create the culture. And we do it with everyone. So it's just a simple way, but it's not about, we can pick out the stories that we feel should be like demonstrating how we should work, but then we ask people, how do you want to do it? So it's kind of a flipped classroom. So they have 2 weeks, they take all the and all the modules, and then the platform has like analyzed that into reports, and then we present when we see them. So wow, you have come up with a lot of interesting things. What of this shall we actually make into our Bible? And then we just pick out the best ideas, and we create the project Bible that everyone is committed to follow. And then they feel, hey, we created this Bible. It's not like an external person who came, because that's the commitment and the ownership we can create when we start with experience and then the question. Experience, define, question, how do you want to do it? Because then people feel like, yeah, we really want a big room. Okay, good. And then we can roll out the plan. This is how we build up a big room.
And I imagine then they're committed to that project Bible throughout the project because of the ownership they have in creating it.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
So how do you take, when you've got all of this going, and really quick back to the audience, feel free to pop questions into the chat box too, and we'll cover those as well. But how do you take all of this energy and all of this engagement then and make sure you keep it kind of going in the same direction for the good of the project, so that you don't have chaos or a bunch of folks going in different directions?
Yeah, there's some parts in the projects where we involve people and some parts where we don't involve people. For instance, what is the goal of the project and what are the goal of the clients? That is not up to be creative about. So what we usually do on that first workshop, after they have gotten inspiration, this is efficient principles for how we should work together, and these are principles how we should collaborate together. Then they know the principles, and I ask them, how do you want to apply that in the project? And then when we meet them, we say, okay, this is the goal, and then we could have an exercise how to break down that into measurable metrics, and then we know exactly. It's like we have to have if I go into a taxi, I have to have an address where the taxi is going. Otherwise, I can't help him or her to find the right way. So we start with giving, this is the address. And then once we have secured that everyone understands the address, then we say, okay, given what you have learned, how can we get there? What type of working method shall we use, and how shall we collaborate? And then that's tied to the project. So we need to have an alignment, crystal clear goal, and that can only be defined by the client or the customer, but then use the creativity how to get there. That's where we involve people, and of course they can have different perspective. I'm a consultant, and I'm a subcontractor, and I'm a whatever they want to be. So it's like bringing in 50 taxi drivers. We give them one address, and everyone find their way depending on their profession and what phase they're working within. So I think that's a very important point that you bring up. don't be creative about the client's goal. We can be creative how to realize it, but not what goal. We did that some problem. We in the beginning when we started to use this, we weren't clear, and then it became a little bit like, oh, the architects, we should make this amazing castle. It goes like that, and I said, no, we're creating a 3-star hotel here. Okay, sorry. I mean, it's very simple to get creative people, super creative, but it's important to have this crystal clear goal. So it's a very good point of view, Rebecca.
Great. Well, and so how then, we've got one of the questions coming in from the audience is, how then do you track the impact of the improvements that get made along the way?
Well, there are different types of improvements. Since in the first workshop, when we define the Bible, then we evaluate, are we following the principles in the Bible? We do that approximately every 3rd month. Together with that, we also evaluate. In the beginning, we try to develop KPIs so we can actually see, are we realizing the different project goals? So that's just traditional measuring, but together with that, if we see that we are on the right track and we have a good progress, that's good. But if we're not, then we try to say, well, are we following the Bible, meaning the principles that we define? And then we can first make a small assessment, like this is, are we bring in everyone and say, are we following these principles, yes or no, from a scale 1 to 10? And if we get 5 out of 10, then again, we trigger the creative brain and say, okay, we're 5 now. What shall we do in order to get 10? Because this is what we committed in the beginning. And then we can kickstart the creativity again and come up with improvements. And then we track, have they actually implemented these improvements? So I think we have different dashboards depending on what phase in the project. If it's like a conceptual phase where there's a lot of much focus on the budget, then we visualize that and see, do we have any deviations or where are we there? But then in combination with the way of working methods and then collaboration methods. But it's quite difficult to measure. I mean, if you and me and Margie was a team, and I were to say, well, are we doing good? I mean, if we had some concrete principles saying this is respect principle, and do we respect each other from 1 to 10? I think it would be extremely interesting if you said 4 and Margie said 5 and I said 10. Then I'm apparently don't understanding what respect is. And then we could have a very concrete discussion about that. So we need to take the principles, make them very tangible, and then measure them, and then generate improvements out from that. And I think the reason why we can do that is due to the starting point where we have created so much engagement with the stories and the questions, so people feel that I'm actually responsible for following these principles because I created them. So that's the ownership. If I were to go, well, we're going to follow 8 principles, people don't have a commitment at all. So why should we do that? It's some stupid Swede who came up with it. So,
but he's brave, right?
he is brave. Yes.
No, thank you. So that's a great point. And there's a couple other questions that came in. I'm going to blend them together. Do you have workshops for teaching and or practicing the technique for facilitators, or are there book recommendations for facilitation or anything that you would do or recommend for people to who want to learn how to do this and learn how to do it better?
Yes, we're launching a course in February called The Art of Facilitation. So you're welcome to join that. It will be listed on operationalexcellence.com. But again, that's only my Bible and my recipe. I think reading books. I mean, I remember I read the Da Vinci Code introduction 10 times and say, why did I get so connected with the book? To say, okay, and I think you can learn a lot from books, and you can learn a lot from good TED Talks. And that's the way of communicating. But if you so I think that's the best way of starting. And if you would like to do it together, we can do it. But we're launching that course in March, maybe, and that will be the facilitation of art of facilitation. But there's so much knowledge, and I would say that most of the experts within this field are saying, just Google storytelling, and then you will learn a lot. Yeah, there are many ways.
Yeah, and it sounds like the constant in all of what you just said is just keep learning, right? Just keep learning. So there's another question here about, this is all about developing culture for the team or creating flow for each work package or construction process. Can you elaborate some on that?
This is all about, okay, now, this is all about developing culture for the team or create flow for each work package construction process. Please elaborate. Yeah, in the beginning, we only did this with Lean. So we had this as a course. So we talked about visualization, we talked about flow, we talked about how to create tags and all that things. But that is very much discipline. And this is the routines, these are the tools, these are the methods. And then we understood that there is something more. And then we went to world-class collaboration, the soft thing. Why are people different? And why do we need clear goals? And why shall we give each other compliments? And why should we try to see the positive in each other and so on? So we included that. And that is very much the soft part. And now the onboarding that we do have 50% of the work methods, 50% of the collaboration methods, and that's taken together, I think is the best. I mean, we cannot only do Lean because it's people. When we are involving people, we need to understand. But again, we can definitely not only talk about the soft side. Hey, we're a good team. If we don't have great working methods and routines and visualization and good plans, it doesn't matter how much if I was working with Howard and Hans and Dean, we can love each other. But if we don't know how to plan and follow up a project, it doesn't matter. So I think it's the combination where we take Lean, it could be VDC or IPD or any type of concept, but we need to bring in how to work together. Leadership, communication, efficient meetings, problem solving, conflict handlings, all those things, I think is maybe even more, but it's 1 + 1 is 3. That's from my perspective. So we have different training courses on a general level and then very specific depending on what you want to do.
You know, you reminded me of a project I got to observe one time from a little bit of a distance away, that they focused so much on how well they liked each other and got along. They kind of forgot to actually stick with what they needed to do to manage the project, and started to go off the rails. So one of the things you mentioned in there was about balancing. One of the challenges that I've seen a lot is when you have to balance between taking the time to coach or engage people or go through your facilitation loop that you're talking about versus telling them, right? And there's certain aspects of a project where you do have to be directive. How do you balance and find that line?
No, but I mean, there's a line here where we involve and all the answers that everyone come up with is right. And there's the other side of this is that there is in fact a right way. And I think it's a strong balance here. Some people actually, once I've involved them and they said, I don't want to develop the bloody big room, just give me the structure so I can get going, I want to work. Then we have clear courses that is more like, okay, first you do this, and then it's more of a tutorial sequence. So people are like, and some people, they hate that. And they, well, I did this in this party, and I think I have figured out. And then I say, wow, show me, because I want to learn how you do it. So I think we cannot say that this is the way we do it. We need to see what type of person do we have. Some people, I think we should always involve in the beginning, but once they've tried, we shouldn't push them. If they don't come up with the right answer or come up with a method that I like, we shouldn't like, I'm gonna try one more time. Then it's a point where you say, okay, I'll show you, come on into this project, and then you show them exactly, and then you give them tutorial, and then you help them implement it, and you follow up and make sure it works. So we need both sides of that. Do it as you like, as long as you focus on the fulfill the goal, of course. Those are the things. I mean, if we don't have a good progress in fulfilling the project's goal, then of course we need to coach more. but I've never seen a project or a person that feel engaged once someone else go, I'm going to show you. I mean, if we want to build a long-term commitment, we need to involve, but there's different scales on this. This is how we should do it. How do you want to do it? And I think just people are different.
Yeah, and I think part of that also comes back to the content that you're talking about. Whether it's developing a big room is something that's wildly different than install this door, right? So I think that it depends on the task at hand as well.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit, going again from the chat box here, some of the work methods that you recommend following along with the cultural methods that you use?
Yeah, of course, there are many things, but what we have started to do is to work with developing a competence around communication and leadership. So within communication, we teach them principles within communication. So for instance, one principle is called frames. So we teach them what is a frame. Frame is something that defines this is correct, but if we have defined that, then we can also know what's not correct, or this is good and this is bad. So if we teach everyone the communication principle frame, then we can say, okay, in this meeting, what frames shall we have? Everyone should be on time. Everyone should be prepared. We shouldn't disturb each other, and we should be focused and so on. We could come up with like 5 frames. These are the frames that are important to have in these meetings. Again, we involve people in the creative process by using a principle. So then we set the frame. And then if we have a meeting where they are not following the frame, then it's very easy to give feedback. Hey, remember the frames. Oh, sorry. Then it's not feedback that people say, oh, what about you? You came late yesterday. I mean, people know that we have used that principle to establish like internal rules. So within communication, frames is one, and then we have like 10 other more. And I think that's very efficient to give people principles, then ask them how do we want to use it. Once we've made that commitment, then it's very easy to use them as our standard, and then we evaluate, are we following it or not? If we're not, then we can readjust very, very easy. But it's the involvement in the beginning. So we have communication and teamwork and leadership principles, but then we have like work method principles like visualization and accessibility and the flow and tact and so on. So different type of principles.
Yeah. So Niklas, as you're talking through this and this whole presentation with the facilitation loop, oftentimes you're tying it back to a project going down a lean path and focusing on flow and all of those. What other situations is the facilitation loop? Where else does that work? Like, does that work for just any kind of training or any kind of time you want to get someone engaged, or is there times where you've seen it not be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, this is just a form of communication. This you can apply in anything. Even if it's a father practicing soccer or football with his daughter. I mean, it's the same type of thing. Make her experience what is really good football. And then you ask her, what did you actually do? Oh, I kicked it really hard in the middle. All right, so kicking hard in the middle, that's your principle, right? And then she's, yeah. I mean, it's the same thing. Just make people do something, and then you pinpoint what is this all about. So I think it's more about where we apply it and what questions. First of all, on the higher level, what concept do we define? And then what questions do we ask? Now I defined flow efficiency, and I asked what are the advantages, but I could also ask, how shall we create flow, or what is hindering the flow? So we can direct the creativity in any direction. So yeah, I think it's just a general way how the brain works.
Niklas, I'm sorry to say, but our time has come to an end. Would you like to give us any last words?
No, I'm just extremely grateful for inviting me. I'm very humbled to the crowd that are here. It's like I see to the right here. So thanks a lot. And if anyone has any other question, you're of course welcome to get in contact with me. I would love to elaborate. I mean, that's how I got to know Dean Reed. We have had amazing conversations over the years. And yeah, I think it's about sharing and caring. So thank you for letting me come here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This concludes CIDCI's online salon. The session will be recorded and placed on the CIDCI website and YouTube as soon as possible. To join us for future webinars, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter on our website, cidci.org. Our special thanks to Niklas Modig for an amazing presentation. In less than an hour, you've given us so much to consider. We extend our deepest gratitude to you, and we all wish you well for the new year and with your new baby. Thanks also to Rebecca Snelling for doing a fabulous job at moderation, and LCI for co-sponsoring today's event. We're so grateful to get to work with you. Be sure to join us next year on January 21st at 8 a.m. Pacific in a special conversation with Professor Samiha Aragon, John Priestland, and Niklas Modig entitled Technology Overload, How to Sort Through the Solutions Needed to Transform How We Design and Build. Special thanks also to Katie Olson for keeping us on track and our sponsors who make all this possible. Thanks always for joining us. Send us thoughts or comments on our website. And happy holidays to all. Best wishes for a wonderful 2022. We'll see you all then. Thank you.